There are yachts sitting in Dubai's marina right now worth 10, 20, sometimes $50 million. No crew, no owners, just rotting in the water, and the number of them is growing. That should not be happening in one of the richest cities on earth. But it is. And when you find out why, it changes the way you think about everything Dubai has been selling the world for the last 2 decades. Here is what nobody in the travel space wants to say out loud. Dubai built itself on a story. A very specific story. And that story is starting to crack. Look at the numbers. Dubai's population has actually grown. Tourism is technically up. The hotels are still packed. So why are luxury yachts being abandoned? Why are entire floors of premium residential towers sitting dark at night? Why are there restaurants inside five-star hotels that have not seated a full house in months? The answer is not what you think, and it connects directly to something that affects you, even if you have never set foot in the UAE. Cast your mind back to 2020. Travel collapses overnight. People who have been quietly planning lives abroad, buying properties in Dubai, parking wealth there, suddenly had 18 months of stillness to reconsider everything. And a lot of them did reconsider. Some came back. Many did not. But here's where it gets interesting. The ones who left were replaced. Almost immediately, Dubai aggressively marketed itself during the pandemic as the one global city still open, still alive, still moving. And it worked. A new wave came in. Influencers, remote workers, crypto millionaires, people who had made money fast and wanted to spend it in a place that looked the part. For about 2 years, Dubai was the most exciting city on the planet, at least on a screen. Then something shifted. The crypto crash wiped out a significant slice of that new wealth almost overnight. The influencers moved on to the next story. And the people who had moved to Dubai for the lifestyle started quietly realizing that lifestyle has a very high price. Not just financially. The cost of living in Dubai has risen so sharply that it is now consistently ranked among the most expensive cities in the world. Rents that were reasonable in 2019 have in some areas doubled or tripled, and salaries outside of a few sectors have not kept pace. The people who made Dubai look good on social media are increasingly the people who can no longer afford to stay. So who is left? That is the question the yacht situation actually answers. The vessels being abandoned are not owned by people who fell on hard times. They are owned by people who are simply not coming back. Business people and investors who moved money into Dubai during the boom, bought the toys, lived the life for a season, and then quietly exited. Not because Dubai failed them, but because the thing Dubai was offering was never really stability. It was spectacle, and spectacle has a shelf life. Here is the part that should make you pause. Every city that has sold itself primarily on image has eventually faced this same reckoning. Dubai is not unique in that way. What is unique is how visible the evidence is. A $40 million yacht is a very public way to admit that someone changed their mind. And yet, when you look closer, Dubai is doing something most cities in this situation do not do. It is adapting. Fast. The government has introduced long-term residency visas. They are actively recruiting doctors, scientists, teachers, and skilled workers rather than just wealthy investors. There's a genuine push toward building an economy that does not depend entirely on people flying in with cash. Whether that works is a real question, but the attempt is real. Here is what none of this means, because this is where most travel content gets it wrong. This does not mean Dubai is dying. That framing is too easy and too wrong. Dubai is going through something more interesting than dying. It is going through the difficult, unglamorous process of figuring out what it actually is when the performance stops. Every city does this eventually. London did it after the empire. New York did it in the 70s. Singapore is arguably still doing it. The cities that come out stronger are the ones that stop, try to be the most impressive place in the room, and start trying to be genuinely useful to the people who live there. Dubai is young. By the standards of great cities, it is almost a newborn. It is 40 years old as a modern urban project. It is allowed to be figuring this out. But here is what matters for you. If you have ever looked at a Dubai reel and felt a specific kind of hunger, That mix of inspiration and inadequacy that comes from watching someone else appear to be living a bigger life than yours, those abandoned yachts are worth looking at. Not because they prove the dream was fake, but because they prove that even when you reach it, the version of it that exists on a screen is never the full picture. The people who left those yachts behind did not fail. They changed their minds. They found that the thing they bought was not actually the thing they wanted. And that is one of the most quietly expensive lessons a person can learn. The real question Dubai is sitting with right now is the same question a lot of people watching this are sitting with. What do you build when the performance is over? What do you actually want? Not the version of it that photographs well, but the version you would choose if nobody was watching. Dubai does not have a clean answer yet, but the fact that it is being forced to ask the question at all might be the most honest thing that has ever happened to it. The yachts are still there, sitting in the water, waiting for owners who are not coming back. And somewhere in that image is something worth thinking about for a long time. Here is the continuation, flowing naturally for where the script ended. There's a specific type of person who moves to Dubai. And once you understand who that person is, everything else about this story makes sense. They are ambitious. They are tired. They have usually spent years in a city that made them feel like they were working incredibly hard just to stay in place. London, New York, Lagos, Accra, Toronto. Cities where the cost of an ordinary life keeps rising and the reward for extraordinary effort keeps shrinking. Dubai looks at that person and makes him a very clean offer. Come here. Pay no income tax. Live in the sun. Surround yourself with people who are also moving fast. See what you can build. For a certain season of life, that offer is almost impossible to refuse. And many people take it. They arrive with energy and ambition and a suitcase full of plans. The first year is genuinely electric. The city rewards confidence. It is built for momentum. If you walk in looking like you belong, Dubai will play along. But the second year is quieter. And the third year is when the real conversation starts. Because Dubai, for all its spectacle, is a city without a lot of texture. And texture is what makes a place feel like home rather than a stage set. The old neighborhoods that hold memory. The local spots that have not changed in 30 years. The sense that the streets have stories in them before you arrived. Dubai is so new, so aggressively constructed, that most of it has no history at all. The building you are standing in front of probably did not exist a decade ago. The restaurant everyone loves will be gone in 2 years, replaced by something shinier. That is exciting when you're visiting. It becomes quietly exhausting when you're trying to actually live. This is something people do not talk about when they talk about moving abroad. The difference between a place that is great to experience and a place that is easy to belong to. They're almost never the same place. The most visited cities in the world are rarely the most livable. And the most livable cities in the world rarely make for the most dramatic content. There's a reason the videos from Dubai get more views than the videos from Lisbon or Medellin or Chiang Mai. Dubai is designed to be looked at. The other places are designed to be lived in. And here is something the data actually shows. The cities seeing the most sustained long-term migration from people in their 20s and 30s are not the headline destinations. They're the second-tier cities. The ones with lower costs, slower rhythms, genuine local culture, and enough infrastructure to support a comfortable life. People are quietly moving to places the algorithm has not fully discovered yet. And they're staying. The Dubai wave was real. But waves come back. What is replacing it is something more interesting and more personal. People are making slower, more deliberate choices about where they want to be. Not based on what looks best in a video, but based on what actually fits the life they are trying to build. That shift is happening in real time, and it is one of the most significant quiet movements in how people think about geography and freedom and what it means to live well. Here is the thing about those abandoned yachts that keeps pulling at something. Whoever owned them made it. By almost any external measure, they won. They had the money, the access, the postcode, the view. And they still left. Not in disgrace, just quietly. Because the thing they had built or bought or arrived at did not turn out to be the destination. It turned out to be a checkpoint. Most people never get close enough to that level to learn that lesson firsthand. So they keep aiming for the version of it they can see. The lifestyle, the location, the look of a life well lived. But the people who have actually been there will tell you something different if you ask them honestly. They will tell you that the arrival is fast and the adjustment is slow. They will tell you that freedom without roots is just movement. They will tell you that the most important decision is never which city to move to. It is always which version of yourself you are trying to become, and whether the place you are going actually helps you do that or just gives you a better backdrop while you avoid the question. Dubai is not dying, but the idea of Dubai, the one that lived purely in the imagination of people watching from elsewhere, that version is being renegotiated. And honestly, what is replacing it might be more useful. A more honest conversation about what we are actually looking for when we look at a skyline from a distance and feel that pull. Because the pull is real. The hunger behind it is real. The question is just whether you're chasing the image or the thing the image was supposed to represent. And that is a question worth sitting with long after this video ends. They're the moment that happens to almost everyone who has ever seriously thought about leaving. You're sitting somewhere ordinary. Your desk. Your commute. A Sunday evening that feels identical to the last 40 Sunday evenings. And you open your phone and you see someone living somewhere that looks nothing like where you are. And for a few seconds, something in you shifts. That feeling is not weakness. It is not distraction. It is information. It is telling you that some part of you knows your life has more range than you are currently using. The problem is not the feeling. The problem is what most people do with it. They watch the video. They feel the pull. And then they put the phone down and go back to exactly what they were doing. And over time, that gap between what they feel and what they do becomes the thing that quietly hollows a person out. Dubai understood that feeling before almost any city on earth and built an entire global marketing machine around it. Come here, and the gap closes. Come here, and the person you've been watching on a screen becomes you. It was a compelling argument. It still is for the right person at the right moment. But what happens when the city that sold you the dream starts showing its own contradictions? What happens when the yachts are empty and the towers are dark and the people who arrived loudest are the ones leaving quietest? You start asking better questions. Not just about Dubai, about the whole framework, about why you want what you want, about whether the destination was ever really the point or whether the point was always something simpler, something closer, something that does not require a flight. Here is an uncomfortable truth about travel content and lifestyle content and all of the beautiful footage of places you have not been yet. It is very good at showing you what freedom looks like. It is almost completely useless at showing you what freedom feels like from the inside. Because freedom from the inside is not usually cinematic. It is quiet. It is ordinary in a different way than your current ordinary. It is waking up somewhere and realizing the low-level anxiety you have been carrying for years is simply gone. Not because the place is perfect, but because something about the choice you made to get there was finally honest. That is not something a drone shot can capture. Dubai has drone shots, more than almost anywhere, and they are genuinely extraordinary. The scale of what has been built in the desert in less than half a century is one of the most remarkable things human ambition has ever produced. That is not hype. That is just true. But ambition without depth eventually runs out of road. And Dubai is at that intersection right now, staring at the next version of itself, deciding what it actually wants to be when the whole world is not watching. There is something almost moving about that if you look at it right. A city having the same crisis of identity that millions of individual people are having simultaneously, asking the same question at the same time. Who am I when I stop performing? What do I actually have to offer? What stays when everything superficial is stripped away? The yachts will eventually be claimed or auctioned or quietly moved. The towers will fill again or they will not. The story of Dubai will keep going in directions nobody has fully predicted yet, because that is what cities do and that is what people do. But the real reason this story matters has nothing to do with Dubai specifically. It matters because you recognize something in it. Because some part of you saw an image of an empty marina in one of the most glamorous cities on earth, and instead of feeling distant from it, you felt something uncomfortably close. That recognition is worth more than any destination. Because the moment you stop outsourcing the feeling of a bigger life to a place you have not been yet, and start building the actual conditions for it wherever you are, or making the real decision to go somewhere that genuinely fits, not for the content, not for the story, but for the life itself. That is the moment everything changes. Not the flight, not the view from the yacht, not the skyline at golden hour. The decision, made clearly, for the right reasons. That is what the empty marina is really showing you. There's a type of freedom that looks incredible from the outside and feels like a prison from the inside. And there's a type of ordinary life that looks like nothing from the outside and feels on the best days like exactly enough. Most people never figure out which one they are actually building until they are already deep inside it. And that is the part of the Dubai story that the highlight reels never show. Not the rooftop pools, not the supercars, not the skyline that genuinely looks like someone described the future to an architect and told the money was not a concern. What the reels never show is the Tuesday afternoon, the random Wednesday, the quiet moments between the moments that make it onto a screen, because that is where a life actually lives. Not in the peaks, in the in-between. Talk to people who moved to Dubai and stayed, not the ones who left, but the ones who are genuinely settled, genuinely content, and they will almost never lead with the glamour. They will tell you about a community they found, a rhythm that works for them, a sense of safety or possibility or simplicity that their previous city could not offer. The things that made them stay are almost always invisible on camera. And talk to the ones who left, the ones who arrived with everything and quietly packed it up after 2 or 3 years. They will tell you something just as consistent, that the city gave them everything it promised, and that what it promised turned out not to be what they needed. Not because Dubai failed them, because they had not been honest enough with themselves about what they were actually looking for when they booked the one-way ticket. That is a harder conversation to have with yourself than it sounds, because the dream of somewhere else is one of the most powerful forces in human psychology. It keeps you going when where you are feels impossible. It gives you a horizon when the present feels like a ceiling, and that function is genuinely valuable. Hope is not nothing. Wanting more is not a flaw, but there's a version of the dream that becomes avoidance, where the fantasy of somewhere else becomes the reason you never fully commit to anywhere, where you're always in transit, always between the life you have and the life you imagine, never fully in either one. A lot of people are living that way right now, not just about Dubai, about everything. The relationship they will invest in once they have figured themselves out, the work they will do once they find the right opportunity, the life they will actually start living once the circumstances finally align. The empty yachts in Dubai Marina are a very expensive version of that pattern. Someone was always going to get back to them. Someone was always going to return for the next season, the next chapter, the next moment when everything lined up properly. And then they just never did. There is a quiet urgency in that image if you let yourself feel it. Not panic, not guilt, just the clean, clear reminder that time is the one resource that does not replenish. That the life you keep meaning to step into does not wait indefinitely. That at some point the gap between the life you're imagining and the life you are living has to be closed, one way or another, by choice or by circumstance. Dubai is still there. The marina is still there. The skyline is still extraordinary at sunset in a way that photographs cannot fully capture. The opportunity the city represents for certain people at certain moments is completely real. But so is the lesson sitting quietly in the water beside those unmanned vessels. That more is not always the answer. That arrival is not always the relief you imagine it would be. That the version of you standing on the deck of something extraordinary can feel just as lost as the version of you sitting at that desk on a Sunday evening wondering if this is really all there is. The geography changes. The internal work does not. And maybe that is the most valuable thing a story about abandoned luxury yachts in an ultra-modern desert city can leave you with. Not a warning, not a judgment, just a question asked clearly, without performance, without agenda. Were you actually building? And is the life you're working towards something you genuinely want, or something that simply looks good from the distance you're currently standing at? Because the distance always flatters. Every city looks better from screen. Every life looks cleaner from the outside. Every yacht looks more alive when you cannot see that nobody is home. Get close enough to the real thing, whatever that real thing is for you, and then decide. That is the only version of this that actually matters.